of course, I know because I listened to you talk to the BBC, that you believe that we're all kind of the villain sometimes, right?
Yeah, well, there's clearly that huge impulse that we have to see ourselves as but as the heroes of our own narrative. And that hero figure for most of us is going to be a goodie. And so we tend to only really see our good points and are blind to our bad points. And also the fact that, in our narrative, those who get in our way, we tend to see them as being the baddies, the antagonists, and in some way contaminated by the kind of evil that's the opposite of our good. But I do think if you objectively look at our own lives, there comes a moment when you can stand away from that worldview in which you're the hero and see yourself in your true light, and it's not always flattering. So yeah, I do think about 2 or 3 occasions in my own life where I was the bad guy. I'm thinking more about when I was a teenager, in that relatively brutal school environment. Where looking back now, I feel nothing but shame. Now, I suppose there's 2 or 3 events, one of which I talked about in that BBC talk, where looking back now, I'm almost thinking that maybe part of my literary impulse has been to atone for some of those sins. So a lot of my books focus on bullying and power relations in school. And trying to find a way out of those confrontational situations. And maybe it is a sense of shame about the fact that some of the things that I did. Actually, even more than things I personally did, one of the reasons I feel really strongly about this is that I wasn't really bullied at my school. But I didn't quite have enough status or strength of character or courage to stand up for the other kids who were bullied. And it was happening all around me. I never quite made that sacrifice or that commitment to try and help others, and now it's my biggest regret in my life that I never quite had that genuine heroism to step in back then. Have I revealed too much?
My rationalization, and you tell me why it's a bad fig leaf. But when I think of some things that I did when I was younger that I'm not particularly proud of, I think, well, one, I think anytime I imagine I find the person who I think I've wronged and I say, this is the worst thing I ever did, and I apologize, I always imagine there's somebody else standing right behind me watching this in horror saying, you think that's the worst thing you ever did? The thing you did to me, oh my God. But I also imagine that if you grow up, one, your brain's not fully formed in your teenage years. You haven't had the life experiences that you do have now, looking back and realizing all the things that had to happen. And also, the world has changed dramatically in some ways, just in the access to information that we have now. The easier way it is to see true north. So when I look back and I think, well, that was a decision clearly made out of ignorance. But is it a decision that was made by the vast majority of people in that same circumstance at that time? Yes, it was. Does that make it right? No. But do I get a little bit of leeway for not being the one perfect person that stood up against the massive onslaught? Or is that a bad rationalization and I just need to do my best to make up for it going forward?
Wise words either way. Yeah, no, that's a brilliant way to look at it. I suppose linking it back to my dogs and my wolves, maybe another reason why I was drawn to writing YA, and setting books in particular in that school environment, is that from your point of view, the bullies are the bad guys, almost in a kind of, the cowboy in the black hat kind of sense, obvious, and that's quite a powerful thing to get in a narrative. But also what I try to do in a lot of my books is to show that so from the point of view of the bullied person, the bully is straightforwardly evil, but trying then to get an understanding later on about what made that bully the person he or she is, and then perhaps you get a kind of a thesis, antithesis, synthesis kind of thing going on there that comes to be some kind of understanding. Because now as an adult, I obviously know that that if you've got a kid behaving badly at school, it's almost certainly because they're the product of these terrible events in their own life, the things that formed and shaped them. But if you're some poor little 12-year-old nerd getting the heck kicked out of them by a bigger kid, you don't think about that. But in fact, that's the kind of broader reality there. So I have tried to get that broader understanding into a lot of my books.
It's a forever gray area, I feel, and you would know better than I with your background in philosophy, because, of course, if we go too far, well, can we ever hold anybody accountable for anything? It's all society.
Yeah. Well, that's another whole podcast about it, about the nature of free will and ethics. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to solve it all right here today. Knock that out.